We talked in when we left off this rewarding misbehavior, and the question was brought up about how early children learn to manipulate, and it's pretty early. We were talking about a video that somebody had put online. I think it was on America's Funniest Videos or something. The little kid was throwing a temper tantrum, and when they left the camera running, when the adults would leave the room, the crying would stop. The kid would crawl or toddle over to where he was now in view, I think crawl, and then continue the fit. You know, and if they got out of view, he would stop, continue over, and continue the fit. But in too many cases, you end up with an upside down home. Now, here's the way things should be. Who should be in charge? God. He created us. Who created us in Genesis 1? God. Who designed the family? Genesis 2, for this reason shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife? God. Deuteronomy 6, who are the fathers to be teaching their children about? God. Joshua 24, Joshua said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And then, who's to be the leader of the family? Dad. You know, and Scripture tells the wife to submit to him. It doesn't tell the husband, force the wife to submit. It tells the wife, submit to the husband. And then she is to be submissive to her husband, respectful to him. She's to be trained by the older women to love her children, love her husband, be workers at home, be chaste, be pure. And then you've got the children that are to honor their father and mother and to obey their parents in the Lord. By the way, what's the difference between just obeying and honoring? Yeah. If mom says, you know, remember to take out the trash, he goes, oh, you know, why do I always have to do this? And he did it. Is that acceptable? No. The fact that he obeyed is nothing if he's being disrespectful and dishonoring.
Yeah, with honoring, like the God you love to obey.
Very good. Very good. And that's the attitude we need to instill, where they want to do the right thing. If we're forcing them to do the right thing and we can tell the whole time they want to do the wrong thing, what's going to happen as soon as they're outside of our control? Yeah. So we got to get to that in the heart. And so, you know, if you're looking for a house and the realtor says, I want to show you this one, you might say, okay, let's take a look at it. And they say, then I want to show you this one. No, you're not interested in that house. It's got a problem, right? You don't care how nice the carpets or the floor are or anything else because it's upside down. And that's the way a lot of homes are. In too many homes, the children manipulate the parents and the parents are ignoring God. That's got to be flipped around. It's got to be God's in charge, then dad, then mom, and then the kids. All right, mistake number 3, expecting misbehavior. This is an easy one to get into. If you've got several children, have you ever gotten to the point where we start just expecting, well, that one's going to have a bad attitude about this. Well, that one's going to behave, well, that one. What happens when we start expecting, well, they're probably going to lie. Well, they're probably going to be a bad sport. Well, what have we done once we get to expecting it? What's happened? Yes. Do we want it to be happening? Eli, did he want his sons to be abusing their office and sleeping with women at the tent of meeting? And he said what? Oh, why do you do this? But when God predicted the judgment to come on him, one of the reasons was because what? Yeah. So but in expecting behavior, we're not talking about wanting misbehavior, hoping for misbehavior, but just expecting it. And so we start saying things like, oh, we can't take him to the restaurant. You know, there's no way Junior's going to sit still for an hour. Well, after all that sugar, he's going to be impossible. By the way, who heard you say that? You know, when mom says, oh, well, after all that sugar, he's just going to be impossible. He heard that. You know what? Yeah, sugar is a source of energy. It's true. But I've been, and you've been, to parties, birthday parties, where well-behaved, well-trained children have a wonderful time and they laugh and play, and when it's time to go and mom says, okay, it's time to go, thank Mrs. So-and-so, help clean up the toys and stuff, they do it and they're polite and they put the toys away and they get in the car, right? After inordinate amounts of icing and ice cream and fruit punch, which is a really horrible combination to think about. But gasoline gives energy also. But you can't go down here to the Shell station, fill up, and then pull out, the police officer pulls you over. What are you doing? Well, after all that gasoline, oh, I'll never get him to eat that. Sorry, my son's not much of a sharer. You've let evil win. Yeah, I almost said you let the child win. But no, the child's not winning here. The child's losing. And you've let evil win. If I want you to think about the stereotypical old drill sergeant when a bunch of recruits are about to go to the, for basic training or at Paris Island or something. As those young recruits get off the bus, does the drill sergeant believe that they already can do 100 military push-ups and make their bed to specifications? Does he expect them to do that? What's that? Yeah. But he expects it. We're not talking about expect in the sense of, hey, we've got a baby. This baby will never misbehave. No, of course that baby's going to misbehave, but when they get off the bus, he knows they're not there yet, but they're going, in a few weeks, they're going to be there because he expects it. And he's not going to accept less. And so when our children, but how can I expect this one to tell the truth when I know he's not going to? Well, start expecting him to tell the truth. But he does. Well, start training that out of him. Well, how do I expect him to learn to share when he doesn't like to share? Well, start expecting it. We'll get what we expect. Now, if you wait to a certain point, you won't. You remember that said, discipline your son while there is hope. But when they're young and they're misbehaving, and it's a repeated pattern, whose fault is it? Yeah, ours. Foolishness is bound up in the heart of the child, the rod of discipline will drive it from him. If you expect tantrums, what will you get? Yeah, if you expect dishonesty and bad attitudes, what do you get? But if you really expect the opposite and train for the opposite, you will get the opposite. Number 4, failing to be consistent. He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him how? Diligently. I read an article one time by a child psychologist who knew what they were talking about. Talked about children are like little gamblers. They don't have to know that bad behavior will succeed, just to know that there's a chance. And they'll keep playing that. It's like we've got the lottery up in Pennsylvania. And people, I asked the guy down at the gas station, because I'm in line behind people buying these. I used to study with a guy who every time he got for 1 year, for almost a whole year, a couple years before I started studying with him, he would spend his entire pay on scratch-off tickets, playing the Maryland lottery. And I asked the guy down at the store there in Pennsylvania, I said, how much do most people spend on lottery tickets? He said, like $50 a week. $50 a week, and they'll do this, just keep doing it. So I want to ask you a question. Now think about it. When they walk there into the gas station and they lay out $50 on a Tuesday, do they believe that night they're going to get $28 million winner? No, they don't think that's going to happen. So why are they doing it? There's a chance. There's a chance. Maybe this time. Maybe this. Hey, it might work. It might work. And they're playing a chance. You know what would shut it down? They do it to say to benefit elderly Pennsylvanians. But if to save the budget, we said, listen, we're going to stop paying out. Nobody gets $28 million. Nobody gets $1,000. Nobody gets an instant anything. From now on, there's no payoffs. But if you just like scratching numbers, you know, you can still spend $50 for a bunch of tickets, and we'll give the money to elderly Pennsylvanians. How many lottery tickets would be sold? What happened? It went from almost no chance to no chance. You know when Junior's going to obey? When it goes from probably not going to work to no chance. The lottery has to be closed down. Go down to a historical city. Eliminate Junior's occasional payoffs. Let them realize the lottery is shut down. I want you to picture a big city with maybe an old historic area where you just can't have parking in there. And the signs say no parking. You know, you park, you're going to get in trouble. I want you to imagine that instead of enforcing that, this is their policy. And everybody there knows this is the policy. If you park, it says no parking. And if you park there, you get a white ticket that says, I asked you not to park here. If you stay there, you get another ticket and it says, did you hear me? I said, do not park here. If you stay there half an hour, you'll get a ticket that says, I really mean it. Do not park here. Then you'll get one that says, don't make me tell you again. Then you'll get one that says, I'm going to start counting to 10. And then finally, you get a ticket. What would that area look like? It would be full of cars. What would be all over the windshields of those cars? Yeah, except for the last one. I was talking about this in Nebraska one time, and a fellow told me a story about a little girl. And her name was Mary Elizabeth. And her mother calls her, Mary, get down here. She ignored her. Mary, get down here. She ignored her. Mary, get down here. And then she used the middle name. Mary Elizabeth, get down here. And the aunt said, Mary, why don't you go? And Mary said, she'll call me 3 more times. And the thing of, don't make me count to 10, don't make me tell you again. Does it seem like it bothered them the first time we said it? If we're not backing it up, consistency is key. Mistake number 5, thinking I don't have time. Oh, wow, we didn't have all the tickets up there. Okay, there's all the tickets. All right, thinking I don't have time. If your child came home with lice, went over to their cousins, and then came back and they've got lice, would you say, I think it's a phase, we'll deal with it later? No, what would you do? Yeah, because if you don't deal with it now, it's only going to get worse. Saying, I don't have time to deal with the lice. Well, if you don't have, it's only going to take more time later. You take the time now. Child training time is well invested time and saves time. Hebrews 12, all discipline for the moment seems not joyful but sorrowful, but afterwards it yields what? Peaceful fruit. You will face new challenges as children get older, and if you've got them well behaved at 6, it doesn't mean that you're ready for all the challenges at 16. But if you are consistent and get them to love doing the right thing and have the right attitude when they are little, you have just saved yourself an immense amount of time for the next coming 17 years or whatever. If you don't do that, then you've just created more stress, more problems, more issues that are going to take a lot more time, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. So you take the time to do it right at the beginning. Next point. I'm sorry, I'm behind on the clicker. Failing to control self. I don't know what mood he was in when Adrian Peterson gave those cuts and such to that little 4-year-old with a switch. He either doesn't know how to discipline a child, or he did it when he was angry. You don't need to do that to a 4-year-old child to get a 4-year-old child's attention. unfortunately, there are going to be people in our society that whenever they see abuse, they're going to try to link discipline with abuse, and then call, anytime they see somebody spanking a child. I've dealt with that some. There was a lady that, I think it was some family members jealous of some inherited property that reported the call, but they reported the call and they sent the child services person over there, and they can make your life miserable. But this guy, she asked me to be there, and so I went, and he couldn't say it's illegal to spank your children, because it's not. You wait, if the wrong people keep getting elected and keep putting judges in and stuff, you might hit that point where you've got people passing laws saying we can't do what we need to do. But as of now, but he would try, but trying to say not to do this and stuff. It's kind of funny though, because after a while we both recognized him, and well, I won't get into the rest of that story, but he ended up not looking as authoritative as he wanted to, and was kind of embarrassed. But there are children in this country that are abused, and I'm glad that there are people that address that, and there's children that need to be rescued from some homes and stuff. Abusing a child is a horrible thing. And there's, like Adrian Peterson, he's got a child that was killed by a boyfriend of the mother of his child. There are children that are killed, there are children that are tortured. Horrible things happening to children. Sometimes it's done in the name of discipline, and sometimes it's the father is venting his anger on the child. You've made me mad and now you're gonna get it. What's the motivation for discipline? Proverbs 13:24. What's the right motivation for discipline? Love. It's not that you're angry. It's not that you're going to get even. It's not that you're going to make them pay. The right motivation is love. So you're doing this to help them. Discipline versus abuse. Discipline versus yelling. One time I heard an expert on a program who's been interviewed. There was a man and woman there interviewing him, and he was saying, it's important to never, strike a child in any way. And the lady said, well, yeah, I've got a 2-year-old, and if he starts to get something dangerous or sharp, I'll go, no. And he goes, and it's important to know that's wrong. And then a lady up in the back says, I have a problem. I'm always yelling and screaming at my kids. And he laughed. And he said, don't worry about that. He said, I got a 3-year-old or 4-year-old or something. He says, I yell and scream all the time too. Put 2 and 2 together there. He's not willing, no. I wouldn't want to have to try to raise kids that I couldn't discipline. And you would end up with a frustrating situation, and so he ends up what? In this case, yelling and screaming at his kids. Which would you rather grow up? Would you rather grow up in a house where if you do something wrong, you know where the boundaries are, and not out of anger and not abuse, but out of love and firmness and calm, cool, and in control, the parent punishes you, or have them yelling and screaming at you? I'd rather take the spanking and get the hug and have the apology and be it done with than be in a house where somebody's yelling and screaming at me. What about this? When sometimes you'll have parents say, what's wrong with you? I don't know why you won't do right. There's this little 5-year-old guy, and the adults are saying what to him? What messages are being conveyed right there? You're defective. And none of the adults know what to do. That's a destructive, scary message to a child. And here's the test. Just think about why we punish. Suppose there is a vase, it's a family heirloom, it's worth a whole lot of money, and it's up there on the mantle, and Junior comes in, and he is, suppose there's not already a rule about balls in the house. He just walks in, he takes his ball, he throws it off the wall, and he catches it. Mom looks at him and says, or Dad looks at him and says, Junior, don't throw the ball in the house. Junior looks at you, throws the ball again and catches it. What do you do? Yeah. But it didn't break anything. Something's already broken. He heard you. You know he heard you. I mean, there might be some times, they're at another end of the house and you said, could you go do this? And then a few minutes later, hey, did you hear me? And said, no, did you call me? In those situations, it's okay to say, but when you knew they heard you, don't waste time saying, did you hear me? He looked at you, he heard you, he's in trouble. This is what happens in too many cases. He looks at the parent, throws the ball, and the parent's going to say what? Yeah, don't do that again. Or, did you hear me? Are you listening to me? Why'd you do this? And suppose he does it again. I mean it, you better stop. But suppose when he threw that ball, instead of it coming back to him, it hit the corner of the bookshelf and busted that expensive vase. Now what happens? Does the parent go, did you hear me? No, now what happens? Yes, now you're in trouble. Now you're going to get it. And now they're beating him. Why? Yeah. And now something important to me got hurt. Ooh, that's ugly, isn't it? There was something in that room more important than that vase, no matter how expensive that vase was. It was from Ming Dynasty. There's still something in that room that's worth a lot more than that vase, and that's the soul of that little child. So instead of, if nothing's broken, it's not a big deal, I ask you not to do that. This is a big deal. Seeing her son's willful defiance and disobedience, she takes it very seriously, is punished. And if it's shattered, yes, he's in big trouble. Not because it broke, but because he disobeyed. We need to take those, but we need to be in control, and they need to. If they see that we're angry, is that real effective punishment? If they see we're out of control, and I'm not saying there's not times to be angry, but sometimes maybe if we're really angry and feel a little hot, we might say, "I want you to sit in that chair there, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. I need to calm down." And then calm. But if we don't seem in control, they're not going to respect what they do. They might fear it, but they're not going to respect it. When we're calm, cool, and in control, they're going to what? They're going to respect it. All right, training to disrespect instructions given calmly. Mom has told Junior to go to bed, go to bed, go to bed. He's sitting there. Video games can be a lot of negative reasons behind it, but in this situation, we're going to have him playing a video game. So there he is. Junior, go to bed. Okay, just a minute. Junior, I mean it. Go to bed. Okay. Junior, I mean it. Almost there. Junior, you got to go to bed. All right. Mom gets tied up with a phone call. About an hour later, she finds him. Junior, you better get up right now. Get that. Now what does he do? He drops it and goes. And she goes, oh, why won't he? Because she's trained him not to respect what she said until she's screaming. You see that? She needs to apologize to him. What I would recommend, say, I'm sorry for yelling and screaming. I'm going to stop doing it. From now on, we're going to say it one time. And then I did this one time. It was a little church. We were meeting in a home, and shortly afterwards, a little boy got out something, and Dad said, he said, put that away. He said, oh, just a minute. Right after this, it didn't work out real well for him. But the thing is, it's our choice of whether or not they never obey. They obey after you scream. They obey only after you say it over and over and over, or they obey on the first time to calm instructions. Now, which is better?
First time.
Yeah. So she needs to explain to him, from now on, I'm going to tell you to do it one time, and if you don't, you're going to be punished. Is he going to believe that? No. So he's sitting there. He said, Junior, in about 5 minutes, it's going to be time to go to bed. So you need to wrap up. Okay. Okay, Junior, time for bed now. Hey, what? I said, well, now you're going to get a spanking. And he kind of wants to say, but you weren't screaming. Right, that's not how we're going to do it anymore. Let me move through these next points pretty quick. So, failing to use the rod and reproof. Just the rod. Kid walks by dad and dad goes, bam! What does the kid learn? Yeah, don't go near dad. Just reproof. Bertina was at Walmart one time and saw this lady, and the kid's just pitching a fit. He's trying to kick it. He's sitting in the little, baby seat thing of the buggy, trying to kick his mom, yelling and screaming. I think, I hate you and all this stuff. I guess she'd read some book. She's trying to let the child understand how she feels. And so she goes, Mommy doesn't like it when you do that. I think he doesn't care. If he was trying to do what Mommy likes, I don't think he would be trying to kick you and scream, I hate you. He's trying to do the exact opposite of what Mommy likes. He just leaned forward as far as he could, got in her face and yelled, shut up! Well, there was reproof, but there was nothing to go with it. What does the Bible say? The Bible says, the rod and reproof bring wisdom. Child who gets his own way brings shame to his mother. There's value in the lecture. How many of you grew up in a home where there was a lecture and then you got your spanking? Did you grow up in a home like that? Did you ever wish that you could skip the lecture part and just go ahead and why did we want to skip the lecture?
Go ahead and do it,
Get it over with.
It makes you want to go hide in the room.
Yeah. The spanking is just going to hurt where? Yeah. Where does the lecture hurt? Yes. And so it's like, that's an effective part. And another thing is too, just on the anticipation of it. It kind of turbo boosts the spanking. It's kind of like if you go to the doctor and he's going to give you a shot and he says, well, you're going to need a shot. That's not so bad. But if he goes, you're going to need a shot. This one really, really hurts. Roll up your sleeve. You might want to hold on to something. It's like, the anticipation of it is, and kids don't need to be, again, back to the abusing. For a small child that has a good heart, this will get their attention. A little baby, no. And they get that message. When that doesn't do it, then it needs to be firmer. When you need to spank them, you do it as firmly as you need to, get their attention. But you got to make sure it's getting to their heart. And if you're just making them angry, that's not solving it. We got to get to their heart and back it up. The two things together. It's the rod and reproof together that bring wisdom. And if at the end they're still, if they're angry after we punish them, is the problem solved? It's not like, well, I gave them a licking, I'm done. No, the job is to train them. And not everything deserves a spanking. Disobedience, willful disobedience for a small child, they need to be spanked. I think that's generally going to be the best thing to do. There's some other things where maybe they're just being careless, okay? They're roughhousing, they're running through the kitchen, playing tag or something, they knock over sister's bowl of cereal, milk spills all over the floor. Did they mean to do that? No, but who needs to clean it up? They need to clean up. There can be consequences to everything, but defiance needs to be punished. Now, as they get older, there's other things you can do. I found that financial penalties are effective, with older kids. Like if you've got, say, an older boy and he's not remembering to clean his room and not remembering to talk nicely to his sister. Is it that he gets up in the morning planning, boy, I am not going to clean my room today, and when I see my sister, I'm going to be sure to speak rudely to her. Is that his intention? But he keeps forgetting and doing it because it's not very important to him. So you just install a system, it's like $5. And so it's like he talks rudely to his sister and say, $5. Guess what is going to become important to him? Is the room clean? $5. You know, it works out here with the red lights and the stop signs. The spanking's not the solution to everything, but it's very effective in a lot of ways when it's done right. And a good way to do it is, especially when they're little, is that's just some practical suggestion way. It's presented to, I would sometimes present it like this. I'd say, oh no, what did mommy tell you to do? Mommy said, don't pick it up. Oh no, and what did you do? I picked it up. They said, what do you have to get? A spanking. And it just involved them so they know. And sometimes I would even give them a choice, you know. Do you want to apologize first to mommy and then get the spanking, or do you want to get the spanking and then apologize first? I'll say my sorries first, you know, and then so they're involved in it. They got to be punished, but, you know, take the time to communicate with them that they're getting the message. All right, need to move on quickly here. Fathers, twice Paul says this, Colossians and Ephesians. Fathers, provoke not your children that they be not discouraged. Fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. I'm sure mothers can do that, but both times he addressed us dads, didn't he, on that? Did anybody, I won't ask for a show of hands, but has anybody either grown up in, or maybe you've known people that grew up in a household where there was only two reactions you could get from dad? Nothing or criticism. A lot of people have grown up in homes like that. And that's a tough spot. And sometimes those kids end up acting up because it's the only way they know to get dad's attention. It shouldn't be that way. We need to give attention. Enjoy our children. Enjoy, but don't let it be criticism or nothing. And don't expect talents beyond their capacity. Not every child is going to be capable of the same thing. You know, you may have decided that he's going to be a linebacker, you know, and he's just not a very big guy. You may decide he's going to be a country singer and he's tone deaf. Don't expect him to do things that they can't. And one of the things that I'm sometimes really impressed with people with special needs kids, some of the people do, I think, such a fantastic job with special needs kids. They really love that child. That's their child. They love that child. And they know there's some things that child can't do, but they still require it and hold it accountable for the other things and expect, and that makes for a happy child. That makes for a good situation with that child. If you have a child that's limited in some way, and so then you say, well, we'll just let them do anything they want, but that's not helping the child. The child deserves to be trained and helped in other ways. Fluctuating boundaries based on your mood. I've heard that cattle with an electric fence, after a while, that sometimes farmers can just turn off the electric fence because the cattle have already learned what. Don't do that. But I want you, so they know the boundaries. You can eat this clover, you can eat this grass, don't go over there. I want you to imagine being a cow on a farm where the fences move all the time. It's like, okay, where are the fences today? Start eating some clover. That would be a pretty miserable existence of a cow. And some people grow up in a house like that. But, you know, dad had a bad day at work and you spill your milk, bam! You know, dad had a good day at work, you know, you can stick your tongue out at mom and dad thinks it's funny. It shouldn't be based on our mood. It's what's good for the child. Failing to parent with joy. Don't have a house where you can't have joy. What are we supposed to do in the life of our youth? Rejoice. The father of the righteous will rejoice. He'll have joy of him. Proverbs 23. Proverbs 13. A joyful heart makes a cheerful face. When the heart is sad, the spirit is broken. A cheerful heart has a continual feast. Better is a dish of vegetables where love is, and fat not served with hatred. Law of kindness is on the tongue of the worthy woman. Joyful heart is good medicine. Crushed spirit dries up the bone. Joy is one of the fruits of the spirit. Being a good parent is not just being stern all the time. It's not saying no all the time. It's not being negative all the time. There needs to be There's time to do work. There should be time for having fun, for laughing with the kids, for having good relations with the kids. You're not the kid's best friend that's somebody he can disrespect. You're the father, but play with your kids. Enjoy your kids. And expect great things of your kids. Number 11, settling for situation control instead of training the child. Michael and Debbie Pearl, I haven't agreed with everything they wrote. It's some people that write on child training up in Tennessee. But they've got one thing in one of their books that made a pretty good point. It's some kids are over to play. Kid comes in. He wants a Twinkie. There's only one Twinkie left. He gets the Twinkie. He's headed out. Mom sees there's only one Twinkie. He's taking the last Twinkie out where the other kids are. There are no more Twinkies. So she says, no, you can't have the Twinkie. The kid decides, I'm going to get the Twinkie anyway. He goes like he's going to open the Twinkie. Mom tries to get the Twinkie. He's trying to get the Twinkie. There's a battle or a wrestling match over the Twinkie. I don't know what condition the Twinkie ended up being in. But eventually, she gets the Twinkie from him. And he goes, then can I have a cracker? And she goes, okay. What's wrong there? Right. She's made the mistake of thinking that this was a battle over a Twinkie. What's really going on here? Yeah. See, this is a battle over defiance or respect, submission or rebellion. That's what this is about. The Twinkie just happened to be the thing that was the subject at hand, but it'll be a different subject another day. The battle is over this, and she's thinking, because I got the Twinkie, I've done my job. Give me my little mom star. I got the Twinkie. And now I'll give the little extortionist what he wants. And I think in the incident, I think she did. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she did. You're okay. This happened one time with one of my, Brianne was a really good girl, still is. She's 21 now, but when she was 3, she was probably my easiest child of the 6. And just gave me very little trouble. Out of the 6 kids, 3 of them picked one day to go for it. I don't mean they disobeyed and then when they were corrected, they backed off. I mean, they went for it and it was a long battle and they were just not going to obey no matter what happened. And this is how it happened with Brianne. It happened with Luke over a pair of pants. It happened with April over a hat. It happened with Brianna over the car seat. We get in the car. I put it in reverse. I'm backing up. April, the oldest girl, says, Dad, Brianne didn't get in her car seat. She had a little booster seat. She was supposed to hop in and close it. And I said, Brianne, get in the car seat. And she didn't do it. So I pulled over by a stream. I got out. I got a switch. I'd never switched her before, never needed to. Came over there, and we had a lecture. There's my cute little 3-year-old Brianne, and I lectured her. I talked about the job God has given me and what she's got to do, and then I switched her. And she got up and got in the car and sat down beside the car seat. I brought her back out. We had another lecture. We had another switching, this time harder. Now this time, Brianne, get in the car seat. She got in the car and she sat down beside the car seat. I brought her out again. Had a lecture. Had a switching. Said, get in the car seat. She sat down beside the car seat. Went 5 times before she sat in the car seat. Later that day I asked her, I said, Brianne, why did you not get in the car seat? Did you think that if you kept disobeying, Daddy would give up? And she went, uh-huh. And my little girl that day needed to find out that her daddy wasn't going to give up. And she never did that again. Now, what would have been easier in the short run that day? And yeah, I could have given up. Or she's 3 years old. I'm a grown man. What could I have done from the very beginning? Put her in the car seat. That would have controlled the situation. She's in the car seat. You know what? I'm not that big a fan of car seats anyway. I'm always glad when they get to the point that they don't have to be in it. What would I have not done? You remember our theme verse that we started with? What did it say, do to the child, and when they're old, they won't? Train them. Putting her in the car seat would have got her in the car seat, but would not have trained her. And so I needed her to be, for example, I made this point one time up in Maryland, and there was a mom that afterwards, a few days later, she said, that point was a life-altering experience for me. Before, if my girl was, not doing right, if she wouldn't get in the high chair, I would just put her in the high chair. He said, after that, she said, in the last, it was 2 or 3 days or so, she said, I have nipped every defiance in the bud. And if she has to get in the high chair, she has to get in the high chair. And after 3 days, she said, she is a happier child and she's obeying. Because she went from what? Trying to control situations to actually what? Training. And what we're training them to do is have self-control. What Brianne needed that day, she needed to have submission. She needed to deny self. She needed to have submission and be willing to obey what she was told. If I put her in there, it's like the little boy that I don't know if it was school or Bible school or what, but teacher kept telling him, sit down, and he wouldn't sit down. Finally, he had to sit down, and this was his comment. He said, well, all right, but I'm still standing up on the inside. You're not done. We got to train their little hearts. And it didn't say in Proverbs 22, control them, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. How many times have you heard a dad say this? Well, I told them they're not going to do that under my roof. As if that's some great thing. So if they're not going to do it under my roof, where are they going to do it? Yeah, but it's not on my watch. Well, but they were raised on my watch. I need to train them to have self-control and respect and submission before God. That way, I don't have to know or see what roof they're under. And when they're grown up and they're under their own roof, what are they going to be doing? They're going to be using self-control before God. Because I didn't just control them, we trained them to have self-control. Real quickly here, because we're about to run out of time, cover these other points quickly. Okay, take the time, teach them to do right, train them to do right, and expect them to do right. Mistake number 12. Mistaking taking them to church for bringing them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Remember that passage that said, talk about them when you rise up, when you lie down, when you go on the way? Picked up a fellow one time, and he was telling us about, it was a brother, and he was sad because all of his children were unfaithful to the Lord. 4 children, and now they're all like middle-aged. None of them are faithful to God, and he said something very telling. He was mystified what went wrong. He said, I don't know what went wrong. We took them to church all those years. From that statement, can you see what went wrong? What went wrong? Yeah. He thought if you take them to church, how many hours are in a day? Days in a week. And you think that, well, I took them somewhere on Sunday and Wednesday, that's going to do it? Just sad. I don't know what went wrong. We took them to church. You shall teach them diligently. You, not take them to the Bible class. Bible classes can be great things for kids, but it says you shall teach them. 13, thinking if we don't allow this, they might rebel and leave the church. What good is being in the church if they aren't in the Lord? And you'll see parents do this. They'll let their daughters dress in ways that are totally inappropriate. They'll let their sons get involved in things that are totally inappropriate. And they, well, if I say no, they might leave the church. They might rebel. Well, you already got rebellion. When people in the pews start living like the world, what good does it do to be in the pew? The church at Laodicea has drifted into a state that the Lord said, what about it? I'll spew you out of my mouth. What good does it do to be faithful to a church that's become of people that are just in the world? Yeah. So we need to, and don't have time to go into specifics of this, but entertainment, attire, interest. And fathers, do you remember being 13 years old, 14 years old? Do you remember what kind of dress caught your eyes from the girls? Don't make the mistake of thinking that your little 13-year-old girl or 12-year-old girl is just a little girl and nobody's looking at her that way. It's astounding how parents let their children go around. Let me tell you, I've known gentlemen who are like have been divorced or in situations where they're used to a sexual relationship and now they don't anymore. And some of them, they can't go to the mall and stuff because it's just hard for them to be around all these young girls in their state of undress. Girls walking around in skimpy little outfits is not cute. It may be attractive, but that's not cute. That's sexually provocative. And we don't need to have our daughters in ignorance just want, well, but this is in style. They need to understand and have a decency, and we need to train that. It's kind of like the difference between you wrap a birthday present. It can be attractive, but you're covering up and not exposing what's there yet. There's a difference between that and Oscar Mayer bacon. And we got too many people dressing like Oscar Mayer bacon. Entertainment. We've got a voyeuristic society. In fact, let me skip these other points. I've just got a couple minutes left here. I need to, don't go into defense mode when your children are wrong. Don't assume cultural norms just because, well, the terrible twos, rebellious teens. Yeah, you know what that also leads to? Ungodly adults. If you don't want them to end up being ungodly adults, don't accept, low standards for the earlier ages. Was Josiah a rebellious teen? Was Timothy a rebellious teen? Don't do that. Don't defend your children when they're wrong unless you're ready to just keep bailing them out. It's a foolish thing to do. Correct your son. Don't put home income over the outcome. I do want to say this real quick. I used to do an exercise with young men, I would say, at leadership camp over there. And I'd take one of the young guys, I'd bring him up here and I'd say, okay, and we'd progress him through high school, get him graduated, college, what job do you want, what field do you want, how much are you going to make, et cetera, et cetera. Now here's your girlfriend, what's she going to do, what's she this, what's her, and then how much is she going to make, and then what kind of house you want to buy, and he buys this house, what kind of car you want to buy. We'll let him spend all this money and everything, and then I hand him like a Pepsi bottle or something, and I go, wah! You got a baby, and it's like, I said, who's going to take care of it? And one of them went, Grandma? That's your baby. We've developed a society where people are building lifestyles based on 2 full-time incomes all the time without making time to raise the children. It's better to have a house where there's vegetables and there's love than the fatted calf and hatred and such. And then this is the last point I want to make here. Corruption from the internet pornography. I should have got quicker through these other things because it's important. And it may be that there's somebody here that is having an issue with this. Internet pornography is epidemic. Among Promise Keepers, if you remember that group, Promise Keepers, a few years ago, it's kind of a evangelical thing. These were men pledging to be there for their families. There was a survey done. You know how many of them were involved in internet pornography within the last few weeks? 53%. And our young men there was one religious college, Focus on the Family had an interview with a fellow that took his girls there and was checking it out. They'd done a survey. They asked the young men at college there how many of them were involved in internet pornography. The results came back 100%. Fellas, your daughters, if a young man is interested in your daughter, I've thought about doing this. Is just say, I want to sit down and talk with you and just make sure it's a day where he has his laptop and say, hand me your laptop. And a lot of these young men, they think this, and I've heard them say this, well, we're going to have this problem until we get married. They get married and they keep having this problem. There's a university up in the Northeast, they don't care about sexual morals. They don't mind that people commit fornication, but they've now got therapy classes for their students because they realize that the students have been so involved in pornography that they're now messed up sexually. And they're not able emotionally to adjust to real relationships because they have wired themselves for pornography. So you got people who can't have sex with a woman without watching pornography at the same time. And they've got expectations based on artificial things, and it's devastating. I've watched people end up in mental institution, in the psychiatric ward at the hospital, in prison, just tear things up, assaulting people in the middle of the night and stuff because of internet pornography. And we're sitting around and we're handing, as soon as our child is of any age at all, we hand them a smartphone, which is access to any perversion anywhere. And it's destroying our young men. And I got to stop and talk about that some maybe in the question and answer session. Pardon? All right. You think back, when I was a kid, there was pornography. There were, magazines behind a wrapper at the store, but you would have needed to have the, decision to walk down there, some premeditated, to do it. You might be at a friend's house and they say, oh, look at this or something. And you could decide to look or not look. Pornography was around, but it wasn't just at a click. And you've got now, and these ads will come up. See this, it doesn't matter where you can go to your email and it'll say, ooh, see this bikini pic, see this pic of this person, see this. And it's like, and what happens when we start shopping for, say, a Hyundai? You start shopping online for a Hyundai, all sorts of ads start popping up what? They realize what you're looking for. You take a 13-year-old child, if he's not being helped, if he's not being trained, and you, at age 13, you have the chance to just click and see something. Curiosity is an easy thing to get into. And then what happens? They start, and then they want to see more and more. And then after a while, just seeing a picture of somebody scantily dressed isn't enough. Then seeing somebody naked isn't enough. Then seeing somebody, not very far from here, I had someone close to me that ended up being tied up, strangled into unconsciousness by her husband because he was into S&M porn. And so she wanted to be there for him in a marital sexual way. Now that wasn't enough because he'd gotten himself like this. Another, and his 16-year-old son's job in the house, how you have chores? The 16-year-old son's job was to keep dad off internet porn. He eventually left his wife, and he said he was headed to Texas where this woman had gone, and I said, your life is not, as far down now as it's about to get. He says, I've got to see where this goes. And within a few weeks, he was in a psychiatric ward. Before he died, he repented. Before he died, just a year or so after that, young man, 40s, he talked to another young man and said, don't waste your life on pornography like I did. If there's anybody in Matthew 5, Jesus gave the solution. If your hand is causing you to stumble, cut it off. If your eye is causing you to stumble, pluck it out. By the way, he had just talked about lust, and then he specifically mentioned your eye and your hand. But the principle there is get rid of whatever you need to get rid of. If there's somebody here who has been abusing the internet and have told yourself over and over, well, I shouldn't do this, but you keep doing it, what do you need to do? You need to cut it off. And people say, well, I have to have it for this. If you're damning your soul with it, you don't need it. And our boys, a young man told me last year, he said, my dad gave me an iPod for my birthday. He said, I wish he never would have given it to me. And this was like about a month before, 6 weeks before or something. He said, I'm going to go back home and I'm going to tell him. And I'm going to say, either fix it so I can't keep going to this stuff or take it away from me. Don't do that to children. Was it Leon, I think you made the point the other day that somebody said about who would put a stack of pornographic magazines on the table and just leave it there in front of a young teenager and say, just don't look in there, and just walk away and leave the house. Now imagine instead of just still images in a magazine, it's moving images and webcam interaction and all sorts of other things at any level of depravity. We're destroying young men. We've got a voyeuristic society, and we've got people who are, let me just give you two last illustrations and I'll stop. One, if your neighbor came to your house and knocked on the door, he said, yes? He said, listen, give me $7.95, and tonight I'll leave the blinds open. You can watch me and my wife. How would you react? What would you say? No, what do you think I am? I'm not a pervert. What would that be? That would be a pervert. Okay, let's suppose instead of just handing the $7.95 to your neighbor, it's $7.95 at a dirty movie or cable connection or whatever else in their movie stars, and they've got professional lighting. You've changed the amount of money involved, and you've changed the amount of people watching. What has not changed? It's still perversion. God said, for this reason shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they two shall become one flesh. Proverbs, study this with your sons. Proverbs 5 and 6 and 7, the warnings against adultery. Adultery and pornography, they have this attraction, but then it leads to this great dissatisfaction and destruction, and it can destroy what could have been a good relationship. Don't let your boys be destroyed by that. And don't be naive that when somebody wants to marry your daughter, he could be a seriously damaged individual. We have got to change the level of expectation among brethren. Just because we live in a world which has become voyeuristic and perverted, and instead of having a real relationship with a woman that you're married to, people are having sex with themselves in front of their computers. That's become our society, and that cannot be us if we're going to serve God. And don't let that happen to our boys. Thank you.